My friends, there are many moments in the Bible that shake the earth, split seas, and move mountains. But today, we step into a quieter moment. A moment not filled with thunder, not surrounded by miracles, not wrapped in spectacular signs. It is the moment of an old man. Jacob, a man whose hair is white with years, whose body is tired from the long journey, whose heart carries both scars and stories. And yet, in that final moment, the Bible doesn't highlight his failures. It highlights his faith. It shows us a man who worships while leaning, a man who blesses while dying, a man who believes while fatting, a man who still declares the goodness of God while the breath in his lungs grows weak. This is not just Jacob's story. This is a message to anyone who has ever walked with a limp, carried a regret, survived a struggle, lived with pain, or wondered if God could still use them. Today we step into a story that whispers, your faith is still powerful, your faith is still alive, and God is not finished with you yet. Beloved, have you ever reached a season when your strength wasn't enough? When life made you lean on something or someone just to stand? In Hebrews 11:21, the scripture pulls back the curtain and shows us Jacob, not in his victory, not in his youth, not in his strongest hour, but in his weakest. He is leaning on his staff, leaning on what held him up in the journey, leaning on what kept him through the wilderness. And while leaning, he worshiped. And while worshiping, he blessed. My friends, this moment teaches us one of the greatest truths in all of Scripture. Sometimes faith shines brightest when you are leaning the hardest. Jacob reminds us that God does not need your perfect strength. He needs your willing heart. My friends, listen closely. There are some people whose faith ends when their breath ends. But there are others like Jacob, whose faith becomes a river flowing into the next generation. Hebrews 11:21 shows us a man who, in his final moments, is not thinking of regret, not thinking of pain, not thinking of missed opportunities, but thinking of legacy, future, destiny, blessing, and the God who keeps promises long after we are gone. Jacob stands in Scripture as a beautiful reminder that a life of imperfect faith can still produce a perfect legacy when God is the one who writes the story. Hebrews 11:21. By faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. My dear brothers and sisters, today we step into a moment that is both tender and powerful, both quiet and thunderous. The final chapter of Jacob's life. Picture the scene with your heart, not just your eyes. An old man, frail, trembling, his body worn by time, his hair silver with age, his hands shaking, yet lifted in worship, his eyes dim, yet filled with eternal vision, his voice soft, yet carrying generational destiny. And there he stands, leaning on his staff, worshiping God as he blesses the sons of Joseph. This is not the Jacob we saw in his early years. The deceiver, the runner, the man wrestling between weakness and destiny. No, this is Jacob transformed by encounters with God. This is Jacob refined by a lifetime of struggle. This is Jacob standing in faith when the world has taken everything from him, except the promises of God. Listen carefully, my friends. Jacob was not a clean, polished, flawless hero. He was a man with issues, a man with battles, a man with a past he could not hide, a man shaped by conflict, with his brother, with his father-in-law, with his wives, and most importantly, with himself. He was born grasping a heel, and he lived grasping for identity, love, and blessing. But hear me. God does not write perfect stories with perfect people. He writes powerful stories with broken people who refuse to let go of him. Jacob's faith was not smooth. It was a wrestling faith, a clinging faith, a limping faith, a faith that fought through fear and failure, a faith that refused to die, even when Jacob nearly did. So if you today feel unworthy, if you feel like you've made too many mistakes, if your past still follows you, if your struggles still speak loudly, Jacob's story is God's message. Faith is not perfection. Faith is perseverance. Think about Jacob's journey. He survived betrayal from his own family. He ran for his life. He worked 20 years for a man who lied to him. He watched his home fall apart. He buried the love of his life. He feared losing his sons. He lived through famine and uncertainty. And yet, in all this, he never let go of the God who met him at Bethel, the God who wrestled him at Jabbok, the God who carried him through every valley. His body grew weaker, but his faith grew stronger. His strength faded, but his worship deepened. His eyesight dimmed, but his spiritual vision sharpened. And at the end of his life, when all he had left was a staff to lean on, he leaned on God more than ever before. The scripture says, "By faith Jacob blessed each of the sons of Joseph." He blessed the next generation, not from a throne, not from a victorious battlefield, not from a place of perfect accomplishment. No, he blessed them while dying. He blessed them while weak. He blessed them while leaning. He blessed them while holding onto God more than he held onto life. Why? Because faith sees beyond the moment. Faith sees future when the present looks hopeless. Faith speaks life when circumstances speak death. Faith declares blessing when the world declares loss. Jacob couldn't change his past, but he could shape the future. Jacob couldn't undo his mistakes, but he could speak God's promises into the generations. My friend, hear me. You don't have to be perfect to bless others. You just have to be faithful. You just have to speak from the place where God has carried you. You just have to lean on him, even when you are tired. Why does Scripture mention that Jacob worshipped leaning on the top of his staff? Because his staff represented his journey. It was the staff he carried when he fled from Esau, the staff he carried into Laban's house, the staff he leaned on when he returned to face his past, the staff he held when God changed his name, the staff that kept him steady in his old age. His staff carried memories. It carried battles. It carried scars. It carried miracles. It was a symbol of everything God had brought him through. My friend, sometimes your worship is strongest when you are leaning. When you are leaning on prayer because you have no strength. Leaning on God because life has drained you. Leaning on faith because circumstances threaten to crush you. Leaning on the promises because your eyes cannot see the path. That is not weak faith. That is powerful faith. That is Jacob faith. That is Hebrews 11 faith. Jacob teaches us that faith is generational. Faith is prophetic. Faith does not die with you. Faith flows beyond your life. Jacob blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, and those blessings shaped the history of Israel forever. Your faith today, your prayers today, your obedience today, your endurance today, your worship today, are building a future you may never see but your children will walk in. Your faith is creating legacy. Your faith is breaking patterns. Your faith is building foundations. Your faith is planting seeds in generations unborn. My brothers and sisters, Jacob's story is not just history. It is a mirror. It is a lesson. It is a call. Here is what Jacob teaches us. 1. Faith is not perfection, it is perseverance. Faith means holding on to God through failures, fears, and flaws. 2. Faith sees beyond the present. Faith speaks blessing, even when life feels broken. 3. Faith leans on God in weakness. When your strength is gone, your worship becomes purer. 4. Faith creates generational impact. What you believe today will echo into the future. You may feel like Jacob tonight, tired, wounded, wrestling, unsure, leaning. But if God could take Jacob the deceiver and turn him into Israel the overcomer, he can take your story and rewrite it with glory. If God could bless Jacob after a lifetime of mistakes, he can bless you even now. If Jacob could finish in faith, you can finish in faith. If Jacob could bless generations while dying, you can speak life even in your dark moments. So today, lean on God. Trust His promises. Speak blessings. Keep wrestling. Keep believing. Keep worshiping. Because the same God who carried Jacob through every season will carry you through every chapter of your story. And like Jacob, you will finish strong. You will finish in faith. You will finish with worship on your lips. And your legacy will speak long after you are gone. My friends, Jacob did not finish life with strength. He finished it with faith. He did not finish with perfection. He finished with trust. He did not finish with power. He finished with worship. And God recorded his final act in the chapter of heroes. So today, hear this. You may not feel strong. You may feel tired. You may feel like you are leaning just to survive. But if Jacob could worship leaning, you can worship through your weakness. If Jacob could bless others at the end, you can speak life in your valley. If Jacob could believe when his eyes were dim, you can believe even when your path is unclear. Jacob shows us, faith is not how strong you look, it's how long you hold on. And if you hold on to God, if you keep trusting, if you keep believing, if you keep leaning on Him, you too will finish blessed. You too will finish victorious. You too will leave a legacy that heaven will remember. Beloved, Jacob's story didn't end with Jacob. His faith became the foundation for Joseph, Joseph's children, and the entire nation that would rise from them. Your faith, too, is writing a story. Your faith is planting seeds in tomorrow. Your faith is shaping generations you may never see. So keep going. Keep believing. Keep worshiping. Keep blessing. Keep leaning on God. Because long after today ends, your faith may still be speaking. Your walk with God may still be echoing. Your worship may still be resonating. Your legacy may still be breathing. Just like Jacob, finish life leaning on God, and heaven will stand in honor of your faith. My friends, Jacob made mistakes. Jacob suffered losses. Jacob wrestled with God. Jacob ran, feared, struggled, and limped. But heaven did not write down his failures. Heaven wrote down his faith. And that is the good news for you today. God does not define you by the mistakes behind you. He defines you by the faith within you. So rise again. Believe again. Bless again. Worship again. Lean again. Trust again. Because the same God who carried Jacob, the same God who transformed his story, the same God who turned a struggler into a legacy maker, is the same God watching over your life right now. And by His grace, you will finish well. You will finish strong. You will finish blessed. You will finish in faith.